their loss.
Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining me as we embark on the course from the Leadership Academy, The Power of Inclusion. And, talk about that, how we can use that power of inclusion for our clubs to, improve a multitude of things. So thank you for being here with me. And I do want to say before we get started that I'm hoping that my presentation can be interactive because, I've outlined a lot of things regarding the power of inclusion and how we can incorporate it in our clubs. But while I have had lots of training on inclusion, I've read books on inclusion. By no means am I an expert. So I do pride myself on being an active listener, since that is a part of my job, what I have to do 9 to 5. I have to listen to people's complaints and seek to understand what it is that they're telling me. So I come to you with some experience, but I'm hoping that I can solicit your thoughts and input throughout the presentation this evening. I'm hoping that your experiences and thoughts will kind of help, some of the things that I've outlined, and certainly I want to tap into your experiences and hopefully get you to provide some of your thoughts. Look at it like this is a thought partners exercise. How about that? You're my thought partners. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, I gave up thinking for Lent.
I was just thinking I shouldn't have had that glass of wine with dinner.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh gosh, and we are being
so, yeah, we are being recorded. Okay. Right? So the introduction, course description has to do with exclusionary tendencies, which are built into leadership and management practices. I'm going to change how I view this for a second. There you go. So I can read that. And so this perpetuates unequal opportunities. Leaders tend to recruit people most like themselves, and they focus their training and development on those they have identified as having high potential. But when we include everyone, we create a sense of belonging, which allows everyone to feel heard. It creates a space where everyone can express themselves authentically. So this course, this presentation, will review ways to recognize and develop talent within our clubs and how to minimize the exclusionary tendencies that may arise with traditional leadership models. So when you talk about inclusion, the act of inclusion, it is including someone or something as part of a group, a list, or a person or thing that is included. But inclusion goes beyond, because a lot of times people hear inclusion and they think diversity. And diversity is a very broad word as well. It encompasses a culture that values and respects all individuals. And so when we talk about diversity, we talk about young, old, Black, white, nice, not so nice. Inclusion means everyone. And I'm sure we all know that our clubs have members that have been around the block a few times. They love the way they do things and sometimes may not always be open to hearing how something else can be done. How do we break that down? How do we seek to understand from these individuals and find out what the resistance is, for them to try something new? how can we do that? And that for me encompasses, being inclusive, having someone that's been a senior member of the club, and you get new folks in that have new ideas. How do we get them to be inclusive and hear what those ideas are, and really seek to understand what the new members are talking about, what can be something that could benefit the whole club. The benefits and importance of inclusion: positive impact on creativity, innovation, problem solving. I think it enhances club morale and increases retention, increases productivity and collaboration, and really allows for broader perspectives and increases effectiveness. And I think as well, it keeps everybody mission focused, because you think about inclusion and our organization as a whole. We help women and girls. We can't afford not to be inclusive with our own members as we, work to follow our mission, and that is to help women and girls. And we can't have women coming into the clubs and not feeling like they're being heard, not being included in the thought process of how we can better reach our accelerated goals. I mean, it has to be kind of looked at. And again, I think one of the benefits of inclusion, clearly, when you cut out all the other noise, when people feel heard and they feel like they're part of something big, it keeps everyone mission focused. At least that's my belief. When you talk about creating an inclusive environment, these are just some strategies for promoting inclusivity within our organizations. And again, certainly would love to hear from you guys on if there's something else that you feel should be in this list. Certainly leadership is a big part of it. Recruitment, because I think if you can build a diverse pool of talented volunteers, that can only help the club. Accessible communications, inclusive programming, training and awareness, and accessible meetings. Those kind of 3-4 things, I think we can, later on we'll talk about those, and certainly we'll ask for your input, because again, I have an outline of some things, but would love to hear other thoughts that you might have. And one of the other things as well too, collaborating with other groups that are in the area. This is one of the things that even for San Francisco, our club, we try and broaden our horizon and our recognition by collaborating. Is there an opportunity to collaborate with another group that's kind of similar, that has similar goals, or similar mission? Is there a way for us to collaborate with them? And I think in that sense, it's great. You can reach a broader audience, but it also, maybe they have connections that you don't have, and it could be a way of increasing your public awareness as well too. So kind of twofold in that sense. So if we look at all of these things, strategies for promoting, if we start with leadership, the power of inclusion and how it works for leadership, characteristics of inclusive leaders: leading by example to create an inclusive environment, a person that creates a space for open dialogue, the ability to recognize every member's strength. I think that's important because it's important when you're trying to be inclusive. You're recruiting new people in. You want them to understand and know about your organization. And it's important to get to know what it is, have a conversation with them, What is it that you would like to do? How would you like to contribute? Again, I'm really big on seeking to understand. So I'm going to use that term a lot because I have to use it a lot in what I do. And somebody will go and, go off and they're having a complaint and they're like, well, he was looking at me weird. Well, to help me understand what that means, help me understand what he was looking at you mean. What did that look like? How did that make you feel, kind of thing. Same when we have new members. I think it's important to, have conversations with them, whether it is another club member that's mentoring them, whether it's the president or the committee chair, to have a conversation with this individual and let's figure out what it is, what their strengths are, what do they feel good doing. The other part is encouraging regular feedback. That is a way of getting people included and making sure that they feel that they have been heard. Sometimes people are reluctant in group settings to kind of talk and share ideas. How do we get them out of that that feeling that they don't want to talk? And sometimes it's just a matter of just on a regular basis, let's hear some feedback on whether it's a business meeting, board meeting, what have you. I think that's important to talk about inclusion. Cultivates a sense of belonging for all. I think that's important for a leader to do. And a leader has to be an active listener. It's like your barking orders. It's not always, a great place to be, but sometimes you have to stop and hear everyone's conversations. And certainly, while there are some good ideas, you may not be able to use them all. It's important to make sure that people understand that they're being heard. And so anything else that anyone can think about when we talk about characteristics of an inclusive leader, what does that look like for you guys? Is there something that's not on this list that you feel should be on this list?
I would think along the lines of being an active listener, a similar comment would just be being very observant. So recognizing when someone is always sitting alone or recognizing when someone isn't contributing to a conversation, just being aware and focusing on everybody enough to know, hey, I need to find a way to bring this person into the conversation or whatever it is. So I would just add being observant, similar to listening, but
yeah, that's a great call out for sure. Anybody else?
Cheryl, one of the things that you've already mentioned is particularly for new members, the mentoring and finding out what their strengths are. I think sometimes as a group, our group tends to let everyone know what we do and how we do it and never take the time to find out what a person's strength is. It's sometimes a real eye-opener to find out, well, they've actually done this before or they've done that before, talents, backgrounds, and things. We don't take time to get to know them. And I think that's a real important thing. Plus, it validates, it gives them the validation that they need and to let them know that they're in a good place.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And sometimes you have members and they can sit and tell you, oh yeah, I've had experience here and experience with this. And so it's good to be able to kind of hear that and sometimes to be able to tap into their strengths that they don't even know that they have that can contribute to the club or contribute to a fundraiser or contribute to recruiting. Try and figure out what it is, based on what they do after having heard them, to be able to say, hey, have you ever thought about perhaps doing this based on your experience? Oh, I've never thought of that. so I think it goes hand in hand with the mentoring and hand in hand with observing and just taking that time to get to know them and figure out what those strengths are. And then, as a leader, being able to figure out how can I put these to the best, the best use within the club. Yeah.
I think I would add to sharing information. Like one of the first things I wrote down was knowledge is power. I think good leaders don't hold information that can be shared because somehow having information that someone else doesn't have increases, in my mind, your power. And I think about this especially at work. The elite, at the top have information that no one else has. And I say power trip, that sounds negative, but I do mean it somewhat. Like there's so many things, and I think there's no reason you couldn't have shared that with us. It's not confidential information. It's not
exactly,
proprietary. It's nothing like that. And I think that a good leader, an inclusive leader would share information. It can be shared. Some things can't, but
when they can, they should, because when people feel like they have a good understanding of what's going on, what's happening now, what the club's looking at in the future, to not share that information is doing yourself and the club a disservice, because you never know what opportunities each of your members may come across. And if they have that knowledge in their head, if they're out at a Chamber of Commerce event and somebody is saying something, oh yeah, we have this money that we could give to, service organizations, it's like, what? It is knowing that information can only help. So I think that it's great sharing information, and we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit as well too. Anything else? And I'm going to go back and add these things just in case somebody wants to see my Power of Inclusion presentation. It's like they'll know thought partners, Jan King, Barbara G, and Judy. So those are some gut ones that I will make sure to add in. Okay, so the power of inclusion and how we look at that with recruitment. And this one, again, it's like building a diverse pool of talented volunteers. How do we do that? Certainly with recruitment, broaden the club's reach. One of the things we talked about earlier was, collaborating with other organizations, and certainly that's an opportunity to see and touch and reach people that may be a good fit for the club. And having such a broad group of talented volunteers really reflects also a variety of perspectives, which can only, I think, help the club. And when we talk about the power of inclusion, when they buy into what it is you're doing, and I think based on our mission, it's like people are excited for what we do. I think sometimes we lose them when they get into the club and there's so much discord or just not feeling that they're heard, that then we lose them. So I think if we really take the time to talk about recruitment, what are we looking for? Certainly as far as inclusion, we want to make sure that once we get them, that we certainly make sure that they know who we are, they have a mentor, as we talked about earlier, that they feel like they're being heard. Anything else regarding recruitment that, again, this is just an outline of what we can do, but what we should be looking at when we talk about inclusion. One of the other things too is, and I know a lot of clubs do this, is certainly tapping into those previous Live Your Dream Award winners. When they've gotten to a certain point, you keeping in touch with them and making sure that they're at the event, and making sure that they know that they have support and mentorship within the club. It's nice when those award winners then become members and they have a sense that they want to give back because so much was given to them. And that is such a precious commodity that I think we certainly need to tap into when we talk about inclusion, because they have gone through it. They can help the club, especially with the Live Your Dream, and also with other resources in the community that maybe we are not aware of. They can certainly bring that to our attention. So that's one of the things that, and I meant to put this on here, but I didn't have between trying to fix my dinner and do this. But Live Your Dream recipients certainly is a great resource for us that I would like to see us tap into. Anything else that we should be doing it or we could be doing when we talk about recruitment? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've said it, but it's just not being afraid to include people that aren't exactly like us.
Right.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
Mean
Don't
all
have the
kinds of
same
things.
ideas, not in
Yeah.
the same financial status, what have you, because when we talk about inclusion, we talk about diversity, that kind of encompasses, everyone. And we certainly are not like how it used to be that they had to be sponsored and you had
Right.
to be approved in order to be a member. It's like if you have a passion for what it is that we do, if you want to be on this journey with us and helping us to get to supporting women and girls. I think, a lot of people are willing to do that. We just have to make sure that we are taking care of that passion once they come into the club.
What's our collective opinion on someone that can't afford dues, for example?
I it's well with certain clubs that I know do it. I know San Francisco, we've had situations where members have come and they couldn't afford it, and we, allowed them to pay it over time, put them on a payment plan. We've had situations where we had a couple members, because this person was committed to joining the club, that we collectively provided funds, donations, so they could become a member, but would love to hear if there are others.
Yeah, I mean, I know several clubs do that. I've also heard on the flip side, I've heard people say, well, by buying in, if you will, it increases your commitment. You're invested in it in a different way, but we're talking investment in purely a monetary way. And
Right.
I'm wondering if, we might be excluding people that have maybe not money, but they have all kinds of other talent, things that they can lend to it. And just might be something to think about.
That's a great call out, because maybe people are reluctant to join because they can't afford it. And I understand that membership dues are different from club to club.
Right.
So
if it's a small club, because dues like to federation and region are due up front.
Right.
You're dealing with a small club who doesn't have much in their treasury, so to speak. That would put a hardship on them. I mean, I understand, and I know some clubs do take payments, but it's good and bad. I mean, it can work. How do you recruit in San Francisco? How do you get this diversity?
It's funny you should ask.
Yeah.
So we talked about this at District 1, actually. So I think we get a fair number of referrals from SIA, more than other clubs I've been in,
Okay,
for whatever reason. And then B, like this year, we're very fortunate. We added a new member because it's someone Gail knew, and she came and spoke briefly at our scholarship luncheon, Not Live Your Dream, our high school scholarship. And that was such a great program that day that she joined, and now she's bringing multitude of friends. And what she's doing is first is she's inviting them to speak on what they do, and then inviting them to be part of it. And it has, I don't know, Cheryl, how many we've added, but I want to say maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Just that one member has brought in, and they're all Black women. And it's so lovely on our meetings to see so much more diversity than we have had in the past. And I think it's going to help our club in the long run. So that's kind of just one member that, caught the enthusiasm right away, enough that she's wanting to bring more people in, and she's still new. But that's this year,
Yeah, exactly. We have to figure out how to keep everybody engaged. I think, again, like I said before, our mission speaks for itself, and it is so worthy of people's time, because, we talk about inclusion. Women weren't included for such a long time, and we, even in 2024, still playing catch up. How do we do that? So when we talk about our mission, people get excited. When they hear what we do, people get excited. And you're just trying to making sure that we can continue to have them excited about the mission, by making them feel included and heard and that sort of thing. Jan, you had something regarding the membership.
I have just sort of my head's kind of spinning right now, thinking of
Yeah.
different things, putting together some of the words that you used. In Watsonville, of course, we have a large Hispanic population, and it's been a bit of a challenge. Someone told us at the District 1 meeting, we'll go to a Hispanic hairdresser. She knows everybody. And okay, fine. But what really struck me was when you talked about collaboration with other organizations, because we try going to the chamber things, and that really doesn't get us what we're wanting to do. But we have a lot of educators, and we have a good number of other education related nonprofit kinds of groups here in town, that if we were to look at them and see if there's something that we all could do together, it would be a great way to be, first of all, meeting a population that we don't necessarily see,
Right.
or work with, coming together with our mission, and then perhaps have it as a recruitment opportunity as well, for all the reasons that you just said, Cheryl.
Right.
And when they start seeing the names of the recipients that we have getting both Live Your Dream awards and our scholarship programs, they would see that we are serving their daughters.
Yeah. I think it's a great opportunity, and like you say, there has to be other organizations within Watsonville. And then what about is there a community college there?
In Aptos, Cabrillo Community College. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Wondering, because again, what's that population look like? Is there
Hispanic
opportunity there?
Yeah, it was just designated I can't remember exactly the title, but a Hispanic Learning Institute or something like that, some sort of a statewide designation.
Yeah.
There are connections there. We have a Capitola Club too, which is just right around the corner from Cabrillo.
Right.
And I don't know if they're doing that at all, but it would be a possibility. We've talked about it. It's just finding the right person there to connect with.
Right.
There was a woman who was teaching there for a good number of years who's now retired, and she's not responding. She was wanting to do things with us, and we extend a hand, come join
Right.
her meeting. We'd love to have you come. And then she'd be a no-show. So um,
Yeah.
but that's a real good thing to be following up on. And I'm
Yeah.
taking notes too.
Expand that reach.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have done, and I'm fortunate enough to have a friend that works for CBS, our local CBS, which is KPAX. And so every month they have, on the February 1st, they had Black History Month. There was a kickoff. So they do a little community thing in their studios, and so they do Asian Pacific, Hispanic, so they do it all. And so probably last year wasn't a good year because I just was so busy because I had to go into the office. So I went to the Black History kickoff this year and met a lot of people, had my cards, and so talked about Seroptimus, that sort of thing. Just wondering if they have those type of things in your area where, like you might be aware, and then to just go as a, community person and be able to, pass out those cards and, educate people about Seroptimus. I've had luck in that as well. And it's funny that you should say that about Glory. I didn't know that she was going or what have you, but I went to the event. And when I walked in the room, the first person I saw was our club member, Gloria, who's now our board secretary. So she was the first person. And so I introduced her to my friend Leanne, who, works for the general manager of the station. So again, whatever opportunities we have to kind of build those connections, I think it's in our best interest to kind of take advantage of that. And really, when we talk about power inclusion, we're out there, we're seeing who's who, and spreading the word about Seroptimus, public awareness,
Right.
but also there might be some recruitment opportunities as well too. So, all right. So this is what we talked about: collaboration with other groups, partnering with other organizations, their community to broaden the club's reach. I think we just kind of talked about, some possibilities, whether it's a community college, whether it's events that they have in the community. Those are certainly great opportunities to kind of get out and broaden our reach. One of the other things too, and I know some clubs have done this, some clubs talk about it, it's like partnering with another club to put on an event, whether it's recruitment or what have you, especially if you're in an area where you have clubs that are, basically not too far from each other. And if there's an event where you can both go and kind of spread the word, do some recruitment. I know certain places as well, they have, events where they invite nonprofits to come do a table. Is it worth an investment if you have to spend $50 at some big event to get a booth or table? A lot of times a table and a tablecloth, and kind of, just some kind of something to get people to come over to the table to inform them about Seroptimus, let them know who we are and what we do. I think that goes with collaborating with other groups because, again, you can meet nonprofits that have a similar mission. Yeah. So
we're going to be participating in end of April at our Pajaro Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Expo. We've done that before. Of course, it was sidelined during the pandemic.
COVID. Yeah.
Now again, and so we'll have a table, $250 for a table, but we feel it's very well worth it.
It's a good investment.
Yeah, Jan.
And then another little hook is we usually have some sort of a raffle prize, something that's attractive and everybody would like. And Fishbowl, if they can put their cards in, and we draw the card at the end of the evening and they win the prize, but the cards also act as a resource for us. We can make notes on the back of the card if we've spoken to someone about the organization, if they seem interested, and then be able to do follow-up with them.
Yeah, and start a mailing list with those
Right.
cards. We've done that in San Francisco. We start the mailing list, and so then when we do have events, we just, it's a massive email out to
Right.
everyone, including those people that left their cards. So, yeah, absolutely. All right. So we talk about the power of inclusion. When we talk about accessible communications, these were the 3-4 things at the beginning that I indicated we talk about later. Again, communications, people prefer emails or text messages. When we talk about the younger generation, they like to receive a text. Do we have the technology to do that? I think we do. Certainly to figure out what works best for them, where can you get them the response. It's just, I don't know if emails are going by the wayside these days because people get so many and it's spam. And so, is that the most effective way of communicating? Is it possible to do text message blast? We tried it, it figuring out what's best. Certainly there are also folks in clubs that they want the snail mail. You gotta, if you're doing a flyer event, you gotta send them a flyer. Take the time to do that. I think it's important. When we talk about communication as well too, civility, that's a huge thing. We talk about that again. As I said, my whole thing is when you encounter some of the challenges, when you encounter folks that, are just negative, they don't want to entertain any new ideas, it's always my suggestion is to, okay, well, Mary, why don't you like that? Help me understand what it is about that idea that you don't like, So if you can approach them in that manner and get them to kind of open up, certainly if they get to a point where it's just like, I just don't like it, it's like, okay, well, well, but okay, so you're not sure, but let's explore what somebody else might think. And Sally, you want to go ahead and give your idea. So just trying to, and sometimes I think it helps to stop the negative energy as well too, when you focus in on them and your attention is, help me understand why it is that you don't like that. What about it bothers you? Okay. All right, well, what if, we did this or that? Sometimes they just like the attention, like being heard. Sometimes they don't, but again, that's usually my go-to, seek to understand. And again, we talked about encouraging input from everyone. Certainly that goes to, being observant, for everybody's part. If you see a member that's not participating, to pull them aside. Is everything okay? Is there something that I can help you better understand? Is there any information that you want to share, you weren't comfortable sharing with? Figure out how to get that person to, again, feel like they're being heard. We talked about one of the things there was on the first slide was inclusive programming. And again, it's like creating and planning activities and events that cater to a wide range of folks, in interest and abilities. It's like everything doesn't have to be a big gala. Everything doesn't have to be, it could be just trying to get to know the group better. Maybe you do a bowling activity with your, fellow Seroptimists and have a business meeting, and we're going to cut it short and we're all going to go bowling. It's thinking outside the box and making sure that your group, they're vested, there's a buy-in, and they want to be with this group as we tackle this mission of ours. How can we do that? Is it from program? Are we planning events that really are of interest to everyone and not just a small few? So I think that's important. We touched on this a little bit, training and awareness. Some clubs really do a great job at new member orientations. Some not so much. We need to kind of make sure that people, folks, I don't know why I keep doing that. People have what they need in order to understand our history, our mission, our vision, what our goals are as an organization, to know about the federations, know that we're a club and not a chapter. I think that is really important to take the time to do that. And again, while some clubs do a really good job, I think we have to figure out how to be consistent and making sure that these new members have the tools that they need. And it starts with knowing exactly what they're signing up for, who we are. So when they have to do that elevator speech, they're all set to go, right? And then accessible meetings, in person, virtual, or both. I think some clubs are still struggling with this, but it's something that we need to kind of figure out. And when we talk about inclusion, hey, I have 3 members and they're really good and they want to do, but they cannot make these meetings. Is it possible to do in person and virtual at the same time? This is 2024. We're have the tools and the technology. How can we best use that to make sure that our club members can participate, can hear what is going on, and by being involved, be an active participant, they know what's happening, they can provide input, and sometimes it's in person, virtual. Why not both? Is there a way to do that? Maybe we just need to figure out what that is. So certainly. Anything else that you can think of when we talk about communications or programming, training and awareness meetings that might help? I know some clubs have 4 meetings a month. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a huge commitment too. And so is that, I'm not sure if that is an attractive thing for new members, when if they're not able to make all 4, then do they feel like, oh, I'm not going to know what's going on? So I don't know how you guys kind of feel about that, but I've heard people say that, yeah, they meet 4 times. I can't do that. Well, I'm not sure you have to go to every meeting. Yeah, no. And it's an immediate turnoff. Is there an alternative to that? I don't know.
It's a hard one. I've been in clubs that met every week, and I've been in our club that meets once a month. And
yeah,
generally I find, like right now, I couldn't imagine meeting every week. Like I couldn't do it. But when I was in a club that met every week, I can't imagine not having done that, because
interesting.
yeah, and the thing I like about it is it gives you a really clean cut off of, 1 meeting a month is a business meeting, and the rest you can do whatever you want. And for us that only meet once a month, and you're trying to cram in a business meeting and time to meet new members and time
Right.
to have a program, a speaker, it's too much. And after
Right.
the meeting becomes 2 hours long, and I'm getting irritated because
Yeah.
on Zoom for 2 hours after being on it all day. So it's hard. It's a hard balance. I don't have the answer.
Yeah. Because I mean, normally I know some clubs operate with 1 meeting but then they also have committees, and the committees meet more often. So if you sign up to do something, there is the activity and the updates on the committee level. But then I also know that some clubs don't have a committee. So, but I think certainly that is our goal, is to have more committee participation. So then those committees, it's not one or two people on the board that's doing everything. You actually have a fundraising committee, you actually have a membership committee. Whether it's one or two people or three people, you have other folks that are participating, which I think can go to power of inclusion and, not making sure
Absolutely.
that everything is
Yeah.
resting on one or two people.
We have one meeting a month. I find it rushed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or the board meets like at 6 o'clock, 6:30, the general meet, and by 8 o'clock, we're done. It just goes boom, boom, boom.
oh, the
Yeah.
board only meets for a half hour?
That's it.
Oh,
But you
they
probably
are
only
really,
talk about what you need to talk about. Instead of like, I don't like our board meetings. You could tell them if you want, Cheryl. But we
Yeah.
go through every
they'll
single
hear
thing every single time. I'm like,
Yeah.
can we just talk about what we need to be discussing? And then it gives us more time for the actual discussion part,
yeah,
rather than just running through an agenda where there are things we don't need to talk about in that month.
right.
Are you two separate board one night, regular another night, or is
It's
it
two
all?
separate nights and they're both
Yeah.
ended up being like 2 hours, but it's all the same content.
Have
It
you made
is
that suggestion?
basically,
Haven't
Our-
said a word, Cheryl.
if you look at our, the board agenda and then you look at the membership agenda, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, it's
ours
exactly
is
the
too.
same.
yeah,
It's like, okay, I'll wait and go on at 6:30,
Yeah,
but it's rushed.
yeah,
And if I were a new member, I don't know that I'd like it because they're not really taking time to explain a lot. It's like you should know everything.
right.
And
And maybe that's a suggestion that could be made, Barbara.
I think I'll wait till this year's over. Start. Judy understands.
I understand.
Okay.
I'll
I
start
Uh,
doing.
I have to say, and I'm somewhat reluctant to even say anything, but if I had to say anything, I would say that our meetings probably, to my way of thinking,
mhm,
feel a little bit more like Barbara's. We meet once a month, essentially. We have and it's midday. We have our board meeting for 45 minutes,
mm,
and then we change to our business meeting for 45 minutes. The intent of running right through the agenda is a good one, in that for anyone who's working, they're hoping to get the people who are working back to work so they can do what they need to do.
right.
All of this in spite of the fact that we took a couple of months this last year to survey when the best time was for us to have meetings. And the majority of people said it was like about 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think ours ended up being sort of a squeaky wheel thing where, well, we're here and the other ones aren't coming. So let's just go ahead and have it midday anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel rushed too. I feel we zoom. Okay, that's it. Anything else? No, done. We're done. It feels
Jan, that's really interesting because one of the other things I wrote down initially was something Cheryl said, but when we're talking about inclusion, if we're going to ask people's opinions and ask for feedback and do surveys and things, we have to use that information. Nothing says exclusion better than you asked my opinion and then you completely ignored it.
right.
So I think it's very much a part of inclusion is, and it's not when people disagree, but at least you can bring and I'm not saying you didn't do this, but at least bring the results back and say, here's all the feedback.
Yeah.
And collectively, we've decided to go this reason and why. But
Exactly.
all of the feedback was important. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like so often I feel like we ask stuff and then don't do anything with it.
right.
Well, what we ended up doing too is because our board and business meeting are on Zoom. We've stuck with Zoom, and part of it for our membership is, we have people that live in and work in a number of different geographical areas that
Okay.
to convene, particularly during the day at one location, is not necessarily convenient for them. So we do our board and business meeting via Zoom. But then all of a sudden we're realizing, we'd really like to see each other again. We really miss not having that personal connect. So what we started doing this year is when we can and our schedule's not too busy with other things, pick one day out of the month and get together for lunch. Those who can. Sometimes there's a sprinkling of business or at least just information, but it's pretty much just social. And again, we try to keep the timeline so that if someone's working, they can come in, order, and get out, and it's not too much of a drag on their schedule. But if
Right.
you want to just visit afterwards, we can. And it's so much better as to my feeling is so much better as a team building thing.
Yeah.
We have a chance to say, especially to our new people, well, what are you doing at work right now? What's your priority? What kinds of things are you doing? We can let our different members share things about what they're doing. We can become more familiar with them that way. Anyway,
Well,
I'm glad we're doing a little bit of both.
that's good.
But after coming, I'll tell you, and I don't mean to be taking so much time with this, but coming pre-COVID from a meeting that did meet every week, and especially with my time as district director, seeing what the productivity was of the various clubs, depending on how often they met, my conclusion in that time frame pre-COVID was that the clubs that met more often were more productive. They had more things going on. They had more activities going on between membership recruitment, fundraising, and all of that,
Right.
than the ones who were only meeting once a month. But we're in a whole different world right now.
We are.
And to even get back to meeting post, it's not really post COVID, but post shutdown, one meeting or two meetings a month is a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know that we could ever go back to one a week or would want to.
Yeah. But it sounds like you have stepped away from just the one board business meeting
Yeah.
and that you are taking steps to just meet socially and include anyone that can make it, whether it's a new member or not. I think that's fantastic.
Guests, friends, maybe a speaker,
Yeah.
however it flows for the month.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, we've started doing, we meet every month, but on Zoom, but we've started one meeting a quarter that's on a weekend in person. And it's often like surrounding like an event, like our Live Your Dream Luncheon or something, or Christmas, whatever. Because we did find that when we were doing those types of things on the weekends, more people were coming. So we'll see. I think it's still too early, probably, Cheryl, to assess that's effectiveness of that, but
right. But I think when we talk about the power of inclusion, that goes a long way. How do we get back there? Certainly there are parameters that's going to keep us from doing that, whether it's COVID or just finding a place that's centrally located, that sort of thing. But I think it's important to figure out ways to kind of make that happen so that it's fun and it really keeps people's attention. So, all right. So again, celebrate differences, embrace diversity in all its form. I think it's important to encourage open dialogue and cultural exchanges, ask questions, be inquisitive, address common challenges in fostering conclusion. I think we talked about some of those just recently, trying to get back from this shutdown from COVID, the challenge of finding a place that's centrally located when you're in a club and your members are spread out different places. the challenge of trying to get through the basics of a meeting. How can we then now make sure that it is enough time to hear concerns and input from others? Because if we're encouraging them, but we're rushing them out the door, it's kind of counterintuitive of what it is that we're trying to achieve. So, I think we have to take a minute, celebrate the differences, but really address what the challenges are, figure out ways that we can kind of get past those. When we talk about, for me, the power inclusion, the goals are promote a sense of belonging for everyone, making sure that your environment is more welcoming and effective, and achieving shared goals, because that is why we meet. That's why we do what we do, trying to achieve goals. And we do that by staying mission focused. And I think we're able to stay mission focused when there is, we cut out the noise, and, Sally doesn't like, Susie, or, when we cut that out, we create an environment that's welcoming, and we stay mission focused. I think it should be the goal. Questions? And really appreciate, thank you guys. You provided some great feedback, and a lot of which, again, I will incorporate in the actual slide presentation just in case somebody wants to see it. But any questions or thoughts to my thought partners?
I was thinking also early on, and Cheryl, I think you're aware of this, and Barbara, I think you're aware of this, and Jan, you'll now be made aware of this. So there is in the region, and I'm sure it's not limited to the Sierra Pacific region, but there have been several concerns / issues / questions this year around this topic of open versus closed board meetings. And inevitably, you're on one side, the board is trying to act on some sensitive information and doing it in the confines of a closed board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably you have members that want to know what's going on. So I'm just thinking, I don't have a solution to this, it's just a comment. How we balance that, right? How we explain, sometimes the board needs to meet without including everybody for very specific reasons.
Right.
And maybe it's just a matter of how we communicate that, like that
Exactly.
we're not constantly acting in private and exclusionary, but there are times when that needs to happen. And maybe it's just a matter of how we talk about it. When you have boards that are kind of always have these open board meetings, and then they have a need to not have one, then everybody's like, oh my gosh, what's going on, right? Because they're not used to it.
Right.
I just kind of raise it as an awareness thing, because as we will be talking more about this next year, from a parliamentary standpoint about what it means and why it's sometimes good and not good. But we certainly don't want to promote that we're trying to be exclusionary, right?
Right.
So
Right.
kind of finding that right balance and how we communicate that expectation.
Right. I think it's all about communication, and I have served on boards where it is an open board meeting that you are allowed to come with notification.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are confidential and sensitive matters that need to be voted on by the board, there's a time frame that's given, communicated, that we will be voting and discussing confidential and time-sensitive issues from this time to this time. So even if you want to come to the board meeting, because it's an open board meeting, you're not allowed to come between this time because they're voting on something. So I've been on boards where that's been communicated to, because whether it's, a company and you have staff members that want to come, or, what have you, but that's the language, and it wasn't communicated out early on. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out, do we want to, do that from a Robert's Rules of Law thing, to do that. But I think, yeah, the key is, how do we communicate it so that everybody's okay? And,
Yeah.
do we do it at a conference, or do we just do it and just say, this is what we're doing? Because when you bring it up at a conference, then, everybody's going to have an opinion. And, I think it's going to make for a long session. But I think collectively, with SIA's guidance, and certainly from a region standpoint, to be able to come up with language and be able to communicate that is, I think it's valuable.
And maybe it's a matter of, you just always have an executive session on the board agenda and you
Yeah.
don't use it most of the time.
Right.
Then when you don't
Yes.
ever have it, and then all of a sudden you do, everybody's going to want to know what's going on, right? So
Yeah.
maybe it's just a matter of making it part of the normal practice. If you don't have anything, you just keep going.
Yeah.
I don't know.
True.
Thinking out loud.
Nothing discussed in executive session. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
As a
That's a good point.
pardon me, as a 501c3, isn't there some language somewhere that says how appropriate things are for board meetings versus business meetings, and posting agendas ahead of time or anything like that?
I mean, it's no different than any other organization, Jan. Just because we're 501c3, the difference is, if you're the government, you can't have private meetings. But no, there's believe me, we researched this year extensively. So it's kind of like, you want to look at what your bylaws say about it. Your
Right.
bylaws procedures being absent, we default to Robert's Rules of Orders, which makes it very clear there's a time and place
Right.
for both.
Yeah. We just got to figure it out and communicate it out.
You
But
just don't want
yeah,
to create suspicion.
executive.
Well,
But you're always going to have people that are going to be suspicious.
Yeah.
But somebody that's been in the trenches and have served on board, they know in executive session, okay, I can't be there at the beginning of the meeting, but I can go in. And that's how it is at our, isn't that how it is at our board meeting during conference?
It's open by, with notice.
it's
Yeah.
open with notice to the governor ahead of time.
Yeah.
I had an executive session, so to speak, during one of my conference board meetings. And basically, it was on the agenda and somebody was there, and it was time to go into a closed session. And they said, thank you very much, and moved on. I mean, it was no big deal, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's become a big deal.
Yeah. Well,
And you're entitled to do it, because there's certain things that have to be done
in
just
confidence.
or in confidence. You can't have 5 million people around, and people need to understand that.
Right. Because even as board members, we have to sign confidentiality agreements, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so they don't have to do that. So if they come in, who's to say that they won't go out and whatever happens? We don't make them sign a confidentiality agreement if they want to come to the board meeting, but they can then go out and spread. Maybe we should have.
Maybe they don't realize in today's world that there is this confidentiality agreement that you ladies have to sign. That's something that came into effect a couple of bienniums ago. It wasn't always that was done.
And I think it's important. It's an important tool, and most boards I've sat on I've had to do that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
No?
Why haven't I heard of it? Why
Wait,
haven't I
wait,
signed-
when you were
why
on the
haven't I signed
board
a
as a
confidentiality-
district director, you didn't sign a confidentiality?
Oh, I did at this, probably at the region level, I did.
Yeah.
Region.
That's
Yeah,
what
that's what I'm saying.
Not
At
the
a
club
region.
level.
Yeah. I don't think we do it at the club level.
Okay.
Maybe that's something that needs to be thought of at a club level.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's
Interesting. I'm writing it down.
definitely put some thought into that, because
I mean, maybe
I
not
think
in
it's
as
a bad
much
idea.
detail as it is at the region level, but maybe
Yeah.
some type of agreement for the boards, club boards.
Yeah,
That would spell it out
Mhm.
there you go.
for both the board member and the people who aren't the board members.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Because a lot of times, like, yeah, you can come, absolutely, you get provided notification, but I need you to sign this confidentiality agreement. And they're like, what? Yeah, so
And a $50
good call.
deposit.
He's waiting to come for you.
Yeah.
Stop,
Right.
stop.
Hi, ladies.
This has been an absolute pleasure. I just want to leave you with this. Remember, creating an inclusive environment is an ongoing process that
Thank you,
requires
Cheryl.
commitment and continuous effort from everyone involved. So, again, thank you guys for attending, my thought partners. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. It's been
Thank you.
fantastic.
No, thank you, Cheryl. This has been excellent. And you know,
Very
it's
good,
one of
very
those
good.
like we could step back and say, yeah, we know this intuitively, but
Yeah.
repetition, practice, conversation, gray areas to talk about. It's all been fantastic as always.
Seek to understand.
Yes. Understand. Thank you. It was well worth our time.
It
You
was.
betcha.
Had 2 pages of notes here.
And just
Oh,
look at
good.
all that the three of us were able to add to it.
Yes, because I think we added some, you had some good call outs, and again, I greatly appreciate that. So I will be incorporating those into it. So thank you again.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you,
Cheryl.
Cheryl.
All right.
Barbara and
Always
Jan.
a pleasure.
Bye.